Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. Okay, this is going to be a fun one. So today we are going to talk about why you might have polycystic ovaries, but not PCOS. This is a really interesting one. And so if you have had an ultrasound and that revealed polycystic ovaries, but you don't have PCOS and you're trying to figure out what on earth could be happening, don't panic. You might be totally fine. And there is plenty that you can do to make sure that your body is as healthy and fertile as possible. Okay, so the first thing to know is that the cysts that you see on an ultrasound are not like some crazy growth that's totally abnormal. This is not like a cancer growth or this like strange, when we think about growths, we think about like boils and nasty things, and that is not at all what is happening with this. In fact, every female in their childbearing years should be producing cysts every month. So I'm going to pull up a little video so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. So these cysts are actually just fluid-filled sacs that contain an immature egg. That is all that they are. That's all that's going on here. You have multiple eggs with fluid filled. They're wrapped up in these nice little fluid filled balloons, right, with all the nutrients that they need. That is what the cysts are that we see on an ultrasound. So what's supposed to happen is that as these eggs mature during your cycle, one of them is supposed to become dominant and the other ones kind of shrink away. They don't get, your body's not prioritizing them. It's putting all of the focus on this dominant follicle, and that is what gets to be ovulated. So you go on and you ovulate this egg. That's what's supposed to be happening here. So when you have polycystic ovaries, what's happening is that you are maturing multiple follicles as you are supposed to, but you're not getting a dominant follicle. And so they all kind of look the same. So if you've seen an ultrasound of polycystic ovaries, it looks like all of these little bubbles. It kind of looks like a string of pearls. They're all the same size. That's what's going on here. Okay? I think this is really fascinating because a lot of people do the ultrasound. They find out that they have polycystic ovaries, and then they're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Why is this happening, right? And we don't get a lot of information. Our doctor's visits are very short. And so you can kind of spin out on your own at home about what is going on here. Do I have PCOS? Is it something else? What has gone wrong? So I want you to know that this is a normal process that your ovaries should be going through. And an ultrasound is a snapshot in time, right? It's what your ovaries look like for that 2 seconds that the machine is looking at what's happening inside of you. Your ovaries are constantly changing. They don't look like that throughout the entire month. And in fact, one study was curious about this, like what's going on with these polycystic ovaries. Is it the same as PCOS? What should we do with this information? And so they took a group of women that just ovulate normally. They basically just passed around flyers and said, if you have normal fertility and want to help us with this study, sign up. And they looked at their ovaries. They did an ultrasound, and 32% of these normal, regularly ovulating, normal fertility women had polycystic ovaries, okay? And another study looked specifically at the fertility of women who have polycystic ovaries, and they compared those with the fertility of women with PCOS. And they found that as long as if you don't actually have PCOS, right, you don't have the symptoms, you don't have high androgens, testosterone, aldosterone, you don't have the symptoms, you don't have chin hair, body hair. Even if you do have polycystic ovaries, there was no difference between that group and just your average woman off of the street, your average fertile myrtle. I think that's so important to know. So there are a couple groups of women who are more likely to have polycystic ovaries, but not PCOS. And so if you fit in one of these categories, that'll make you feel a little better too. So teenagers, totally normal. Your body is learning how to ovulate. It's learning how to mature eggs. Your brain is learning how to communicate with your ovaries. You're kind of getting into your own groove. And this can take a little while, right? It's like any relationship. Your brain and your ovaries have a relationship. It takes time to build up that communication, to really get that rhythm going where like you can finish each other's sentences. That's what ultimately your brain and ovaries are supposed to be able to do. And so when you're a teenager, you're still learning how to do that. And so it's very common for teenage girls to have polycystic ovaries, but it 100% does not predict what will happen later on. It does not mean that you will have PCOS. It does not mean that you will have fertility problems. It's a snapshot in time, like we were looking at. So you want to be looking at your whole picture, right? What's going on with your entire health. So if you menstruate regularly, you don't have cramps, you don't get PMS, you don't have crazy acne. You'll have some, you're a teenager, but it's not like, insane. If none of that is happening, but you have an ultrasound for some reason and you see these polycystic ovaries, your body is just kind of adjusting to this routine. On the other hand, if you do have those symptoms, this is a great time to start cleaning up your diet now and save yourself so much hassle and heartache later on. Our period is our 5th vital sign. And so if something is happening while you're a teenager, it's very likely that something will happen later on. So start the work when you're a teenager. You're already building up your identity of who you are. Add on, you are someone who takes care of your body. There you go. I make that sound so easy. That's a whole process. So the second group of women more likely to have polycystic ovaries, but not polycystic ovarian syndrome, not PCOS, are women who recently came off the hormonal birth control pill. And it's kind of for the same reason as teenagers, right? Your body is getting used to running the show again. Your hormones, while you're on the pill, have been suppressed, right? So your brain and ovaries, you are not producing the hormones that you usually would have. You're getting these doses of synthetic hormones through the pill. And that's, how the contraception works. And so when you come off of that, your brain and ovaries are going to need a minute to figure out how to do this activity on their own again. And this is especially true the longer you have been on the pill, right? If you went on at 15 because of acne and you just stayed on it for contraception through your adult years, and now you're 28, 30, 32, 36, wanting to have a baby, your brain is basically having to learn a brand new skill that it has never done before, right? So give yourself some time. Give yourself some grace. Eat some nutrient-dense foods, right? Our brain and our ovaries need nutrients in order to just do their basic functions. And so give yourself that grace and take care of yourself during this process. It will start to change. Your body knows what to do. It's just like learning a new skill. You're going to be bad at it at first. You just are. And that's totally okay. Because the more you practice, i.e., the longer you are off the birth control pill, the more your body is going to get into the swing of things. Okay, so polycystic ovaries are basically a sign that the brain and ovaries are not communicating as well as they could. The message to select that dominant follicle, to stop maturing the others, it's either not getting to the ovaries, or the ovaries aren't listening, or the brain isn't getting the message about where we even are in this process and what it needs to be doing. Either way, your first course of action is always diet. Always. Your brain and ovaries need a lot of nutrients. They need this stuff to get the job done, right? It's like if you think of your body as a factory, if you weren't bringing in the raw materials, you couldn't produce the things that you're trying to produce. It's the same thing in your body. And so if they're not getting the nutrients they need, they can't do their job properly. So diet is always first. And then if you want to give yourself some extra support, you can try out Chaste Tree Berry. It's spelled out just like that, Chaste. Chaste, tree berry. It's also called Vitex, and you've probably seen that name come up. If you're in any Facebook groups, if you've done any research on fertility, you've probably seen Vitex come up. It's an herbal supplement. It's basically a berry from a tree, but it has these compounds that help your brain, specifically the pituitary gland in your brain, communicate with your ovaries. It just helps open up that passage. Like, you can think of it as you upgrade your cell phone service and now you just have better service and you can communicate more clearly. That's kind of what Vitex does for our hormones, for our brain and our ovaries. Okay, I hope that this was helpful. If you are one of those women who you did an ultrasound on a routine gyno appointment, you find out you have polycystic ovaries, but you don't have PCOS, there's not a lot of info out there. So I hope that this gave you an idea of what is really going on. And so if you do need some extra help, either managing your hormones, your fertility, figuring out where to get started with diet, you can reach out to me and I can help you with that. And if you enjoyed this video, please click that like button below, consider subscribing to my channel, and share this video out with your friends who need this information. Tune in next Monday. We're going to be talking about what the color of your period blood says about your health. It's your hormones creating this thing that you can observe, and you can use this information to get a glimpse into your own health. So tune in for that, and I'll see you there.